Hi, folks. I'm just going to give everybody a few moments to log in. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you log in, you're going to see a couple of polls, and it would be fantastic if we could get your opinion. We'll talk about these a little bit later with our panelists, but also really help shape what Women in DevOps looks like for 2021. If you've just joined us, welcome. Welcome to Women in DevOps. Just going to give it a few more seconds before we kick off and introduce you to our lovely panel. Excellent. Well, welcome everybody to the 24th Women in DevOps event. It is also our 10th event this year, so rounding off 2020 very nicely. I'm really excited about today because today we are going to be reviewing 2020 with a brilliant team from JFrog who've had quite a year themselves. So I welcome you all. Just some housekeeping, just to make everybody aware, we are recording today and this will be available on YouTube, Facebook and LinkedIn. So don't say anything that you wouldn't say in front of your colleagues or to go on any public platforms. In addition, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat box. Please take part in our polls and I hope you have a great time. So I'm going to before I introduce our lovely panel, I'm going to hand you over to Ari, who has some very exciting news. As always, we welcome his presence. He always gives away very fun items, and we always have a very lucky winner. So Ari, please introduce yourself and let everyone know what you're giving away today.
Thanks so much, Lauren. I appreciate it. It's really an honor, especially tonight, to be with everybody here. As you know, JFrog, we're just really privileged to be part of the Women in DevOps community. And I've really enjoyed being a sponsor over the last 6 months, and definitely looking forward to what's ahead as well. Rather than assume you've heard of JFrog, I'll just give you a brief overview. JFrog is a DevOps software company. We're based in Silicon Valley. We were founded in 2008. Many of you may know us by our flagship product, Artifactory, which is the world's leading binary repository. But what a lot of people don't know about JFrog is that we have come out with a free cloud-based subscription access that's available to everybody in the community. So whether you've been a DevOps professional for a really long time or you're just getting into it, there's an opportunity for you to play with our tools and play with some projects and really enjoy them. We give access to these tools, but we also are offering, as you can see, and actually you can't see because I haven't shared my screen yet, which I normally do in advance, but we are offering a free workshop that we wanted to make sure that you were aware of. Now it is actually a little bit later for Central European time. It's actually at 9 p.m. next Wednesday. So after you get home from work and unwind a little bit, you'll have an opportunity to hear from Kat, who teaches a really awesome workshop and will walk you through the tools that we have that are free for you to use, and you can get started in using them right away, really from that course. So we're very excited about that. So feel free to scan the QR code, and I'll drop the bit.ly link shortly. And also, as Lauren said, one of the things we love to do is we love to do some giveaways. So for this month, you'll have an opportunity to enter to win a pair of Google Pixel Buds. And if you scan the QR code, and I'll put the bit.ly link in the chat shortly, you'll be able to enter to win those. But we want to give people more of an opportunity to win. So anyone that enters the raffle for the Pixel Buds is also going to have an opportunity to get one of 10 JFrog t-shirts that we're giving away. I'm wearing one today, Lauren's wearing one, and you too can have one as well. So we're going to be sure and give those away also. So anyway, I'm really excited to hear from our panelists tonight. I have the privilege of working with them on a daily basis. So I'll turn it back over to you, Lauren, and we'll get started.
Thank you. I feel like there should be some terms and conditions there that if you are not watching this live, that competition is now closed.
Yes, absolutely. The link, the form closes automatically after the meetup and networking, so we're good there.
Excellent. So yeah, so welcome, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Lauren. I'm the founder of Women in DevOps. I probably should have explained that at the start, but I was just so excited about the t-shirt giveaway. I founded Women in DevOps in 2017 to bridge the gender gap within the DevOps community, but since 2017, it has just grown into so much more. And we're very excited to be on this journey with you. So if you've been before, welcome back. And if this is your first time with us, then welcome. So I'd love to introduce our panel today. We have Kat, we have Mattel, we have Stephen and Melissa from JFrog. I could introduce them myself, but I'm sure I would not do them and their backgrounds justice. So if you all wouldn't mind just giving a quick introduction to yourselves, that would be fantastic. And Kat, we've already touched on your DevOps 101 workshop, which I was privileged to sit in a few weeks ago, and it was brilliant. So Kat, if you could introduce yourself first.
Sure. Hey, y'all. My name is Kat Cosgrove. Like she said, I'm a developer advocate at JFrog, and sometimes I also impersonate container security expert Ian Coldwater on Twitter for fun, which goes a long way for entertainment. But yes, I write a lot of DevOps 101 content because I struggled a lot when I was learning DevOps a couple years ago, and I would like fewer people to struggle with that.
Excellent. Melissa, welcome.
Hey, so excited to be here. This is going to be really fun. We had a chance to chat a little bit before this panel, and we had a lot of fun already, so I'm looking forward to more of that. I am a developer. I have been a developer most of my career. At the beginning of this year, I made the move to JFrog to be a developer advocate. So I'm really excited to use my experience to hopefully help some engineers out there ease their processes and get their projects out there a little more cleanly, a little more easier. I really like the DevOps community and the atmosphere here. It just fits really well with what I want to do and my goals. So yeah, that's me.
Excellent, thank you. Stephen, I am loving the Irish pub style background that you're sporting. It's making me feel very at home.
Yes, actually, I'm one quarter Irish. So I'm Stephen Chin. I run the developer relations team at JFrog. So I also have been doing DevOps for a while and really love educating and helping folks to learn more about how to do a DevOps and best practices. And also very glad that we're able to participate in Women in DevOps. I've been very passionate for years about educating kids and getting more folks of all gender and different backgrounds to get into technology. And I have a somewhat selfish reason for caring so much about this, because I have two daughters who also are interested in technology, and I'd love for us to have a much more equitable and welcoming place for them to go into when they enter the workplace. So you guys are doing great work here, and I'm very glad that we're able to be here on the panel.
Thank you. And last but absolutely not least, Mattel, do we have you?
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm also super excited to be here. So thanks again for the opportunity. My name is Mattel. I'm part of the JFrog High Touch Solution team. I've been developer for 2 years. Then I moved to JFrog. I was part of the support and then moved to the High Touch Solution team, which is a dedicated team that's working with our Enterprise Plus customers and the top 40 customers. And it's really, really interesting to see how are people using our software and using other softwares and CI/CD servers. So we're gonna have some fun today.
Excellent. And am I right in thinking that you're in the Tel Aviv office?
Yeah, so Mattel's based out of
Right.
Netanya,
I'm in
Israel.
Tel Aviv office in Israel.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I appreciate that it's very late for you. It's basically past my bedtime. So an extra thank you for joining us.
It's Thursday, that's fine.
Excellent. Well, look, if you need to grab a glass of wine at any point, feel free. Well, look, what a year. Like,
Yeah.
2020 happened, COVID-19 happened, the IPO happened, online happened. You know, we've had security breaches, everything you can name of. I don't know about anyone else, but I cannot wait for the holidays. I would love to hear from you folks. Let's start on a positive. Like, what went well this year? What are the big and the small wins that we can celebrate within the DevOps community and at JFrog and within your team?
Well, I think this certainly forced a lot of companies to be way more comfortable with automation. It's unfortunate that it took like a global tragedy for more people to become comfortable with automation, but in my experience over the decades with tech, that's usually what it takes for somebody to make a large switch like that. But so it was a painful way to make that change, but ultimately it is a good thing, and it'll be better for companies, it'll be better for their dev teams, and most importantly, it'll be better for consumers. So it's overall a positive for me.
Good. I love it. Anything else to add?
I had the privilege of not only switching, complete type of job from developer to developer advocate, but from company to company as well. And I give JFrog a lot of credit for preparing their employees for this, getting everyone set up with working from home, being really understanding of the challenges that each of us have individually. Some of us have small children, some of us have pets. There's, all kinds of stuff that we've had to deal with. And I think they did a really good job of helping their employees out. And I'm really happy to be with JFrog right now. And it sounds like a total advertisement for JFrog, but I don't know, had to share that because I'm relatively new, and I was really impressed.
Good.
Aww.
Yeah.
We pay for that, or? No, I'm absolutely joking. You've drawn some good points there, and we're definitely going to come back to remote onboarding, kind of hiring trends, and what we've learned from this year. So we definitely come back to that point, Melissa, for sure. Stephen, do you want to go next?
I just wanted to add something as well, which is I think we're very fortunate in the tech industry that unlike other occupations or industries, we've been relatively unaffected. Most of us are able to work from home. Most of us are in a field where even if our individual company kind of was affected, the general market, there are good market opportunities, there's good job openings. In particular, like DevOps and cloud native opportunities have actually gotten even bigger because of the adoption of cloud. So I just want to, I know that this year has been tough on a lot of people. We all have friends or family or folks who have been impacted. Personally, so a big loss for the DevOps community, which happened really early on last year, was one of our dear friends and kind of a DevOps and Java champion, Carl Quinn, passed away. And I think we also just want to be cognizant that it's been a very tough year for a lot of folks, and we should be fortunate for what we have.
Very true. It has been a whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's that can't be understated or underappreciated. I think gotta keep that top of mind. It has been kind of brutal.
It really has. And again, you have some great points, Stephen, that we'll definitely kind of circle back to and elaborate into some more detail a little bit later on. And also you mentioned earlier about, selfish reasons for having more because of your daughters. I feel like it's never selfish to, to be an advocate in any sense of the word. But would love to reconnect in a few years and see if they're coding on iPads.
Yeah. And
before high school.
I think it's also something that we all need to take personally. Like I think a lot of companies are becoming more aware of diversity. They're starting to care more about being equitable. But as team members who work with different folks, as managers or folks who are leading teams, I think it's something you should take personal responsibility for and help others out with.
Absolutely, I could not agree with you more. Mattel, what were your personal highs, or what have you been celebrating that's happened this year?
So basically I think that we, as my friends just said, we learned a lot during this year to work remotely and try to be much more sensitive to the team and try to really appreciate the teamwork together, because it was really, really tough to see the whole team together and work together from the office. So yeah, I'm totally agree with Steven, and we have to appreciate what we have right now.
Of course, it's I just got to the point where I'm like, I don't even know what to say anymore about 2020. It's certainly been testing times, but I agree with you, Kat. There's definitely been some positives around adaptability, and we're very, very lucky that in the technology space, if anyone was more equipped for this, it was us.
Definitely.
And hopefully, we are, as a technology community, leading the way for others, right? And within the last few months, I've definitely seen businesses in other sectors kind of follow suit and be like, actually, we should have been prepared for this. We haven't been, but now is the time to invest in security, invest in the cloud, invest in the future. So with all that in mind, there's lots of topics and themes here we're going to try and get through. We could talk about this all afternoon. I certainly could, but we don't have all day. So I'd like to kind of draw on some key bits. But as we're going along, folks, if you do have questions, pop them in the box so you don't forget them. But we will do questions at the end just so we don't lose any flow. But let's go back to Kat. You mentioned that you'd struggled a couple of years ago, kind of making that transition to learning DevOps, and it's certainly become. And I know it's not as buzzword, but it's evolved, right? It's blown up since 2014 in so many different ways. Why do you think DevOps has gained such prominence over the last few years? Like, why are we talking about it and forming teams and its ideology and automating the way that we are?
Humans are really, really bad at repetitive tasks. There's a hard limit to how good we can get at something by repeating that thing. And even then, if you have a human do a menial repetitive task, humans get bored, or we get tired, or we're just like, we're having a bad day. We're not operating at 100%, and we make a mistake. And that's totally normal. And there's not really anything we can do to prevent that other than have a tool do that for us. Because the computer doesn't get tired. It doesn't have opinions. It doesn't have like a significant other who might, I don't know, pick a fight with them the previous night and they wake up in a bad mood or whatever. It doesn't happen. And we saw like a series of pretty serious catastrophes with like real monetary impact that were a result of having a human do something a computer should have been doing. Like the Night Capitol disaster was in part a result of a human doing something infrequently that a computer should have been doing frequently, and some like really bad design decisions from a technical perspective. But the automation was like, the lack of automation took a lot of the blame there. So that forces the issue into the public eye in a position where like you cannot ignore it anymore. And at that point, the pain and the awkwardness of adopting the like cultural change that DevOps requires to actually work well in combination with the tooling becomes less of an issue than your company losing like a couple $100 million on the stock market and tanking like 100 and something other companies' shares and going out of business. So it's for me, it's people realizing that automation is important, that humans suck at doing the same thing over and over again.
I like that. That's a good answer. That was like I'm not technical. I can talk about it. I understand concepts, but I could not spin up a server or deploy a container, but I understood that. So I really appreciate that kind of simple understanding. Great, we've got Mattel back. We lost her momentarily. Melissa, Stephen, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I love this question. I love talking about this because the conversation, we have so much to say
I'm really, really sorry. My internet was a bit laggy. I'm sorry for that.
That's okay. I think that
again, I'm really agreeing with Kate actually, and I think that we love to automate stuff. Like we like that someone just do that for us, like asking our Alexa to do some functions that we want to do, and it's much easier to maintain it when it's automatically, and we can just create our own task.
True. I think the way teams work together is different in DevOps. It's a communication thing. We've gotten to the point where we have such pressures with being able to deliver faster, being able to handle larger loads, thinking of our applications and our services differently in a way that like maybe pieces can be scaled differently so that they can handle better loads, things like that. All of this is coming down to developers can no longer be in this silo and only look at the code that they're writing. We also now need to be concerned with how is my service going to be deployed? How am I going to test it? And I think DevOps and this whole movement is really important, putting all of those pieces together so that we have that efficiency all the way down the line, from developing the code to begin with, to getting that code deployed efficiently, repeatably, reliably, and all of that. So I definitely came from the age when developers were in that silo, and my first experience on an actual DevOps team was a couple of years ago. I was put on a DevOps team, and it was really enlightening to me to realize the different decisions I would make as a developer, knowing how my service was being deployed. It had never occurred to me that I would actually design something differently, knowing the end result and what needed to happen down the line, and know the pains that operations goes through, keeping my service up and running. It's been nice. It's a good direction to go. I think the right decision, and getting this communication between the teams is essential.
Excellent.
Oh, that's great. But Melissa, do you remember your first VM that you created as a developer? It was like, we hate to do that as a developer. You hate to create the VMs and try to make sure, because in my computer it's always works.
Yes, I do remember that.
Excellent. Stephen, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of echo what Melissa, Kat, and Patel have said. And I actually went into DevOps as a developer, just needing to automate stuff, which I was pushing to production. And we had a great ops team. They did an awesome job at maintaining stuff in production, but unfortunately, it really, really sucks to be woken up after midnight or on a weekend to fix a production issue because somebody decides to run a random SQL script in production that they never tested, or they decided to upgrade a component or a library in production. And those, for the most part, I think Andrea in chat said this as well, that kind of the cloud native movement has changed the way we think about deploying software, about pushing things to production, and has accelerated the need for good DevOps infrastructure. because now just the customer expectation for updates is just always there. If you think about your phone, your autonomous car, your smart TV, you just expect that it's updated and it's working and it's on the latest version. And as software developers, this is, or DevOps engineers, this is our problem now to solve. We need to find out how we can build systems which scale and are maintainable. And thankfully, we have lots of great automation, but it's a lot to learn now. Like I kind of learned things as they came up technologically, but I think back to Kat's point, if you had to just kind of get the full brain dump of everything DevOps and cloud native you need to like run an effective project, even just becoming reasonably competent in Kubernetes is challenging.
Yeah, no, fair enough. They were all really great answers. What I would love to know now then is off the back of what all four of you have just said, what's been like a major help for you this year? Like what tools have been a bit of a lifesaver when looking at those cloud native environments or your Kubernetes clusters? Like, is there anything particular this year that you couldn't have lived without? And it can be a JFrog product, right? It doesn't need to be like...
Well, I was already using all of JFrog's products, so I don't know if that counts. Though the new cloud platform does make it much easier for me to teach DevOps to other people because they can just sign up for this thing for free. So that makes things way more painless for me. On like personally, infrastructure as code with actual code is my new favorite thing, not like a proprietary language. So I made some pithy tweet about like not liking YAML early in the year, and somebody was like, "Hey, have you heard of Pulumi?" And I was like, "No." And I kind of like wrote it off because I assumed it was another like specific language thing until a couple months later when I actually looked at it because I was building some personal project, and you can just like write your infra and deploy in Python or TypeScript or whatever, like right there in your Flask server. And I thought that was so rad because I really don't like YAML. I really do not like writing YAML. I don't like dealing with it. I don't like versioning it. And I would just stay in Python if I could. And this lets me do that. So that's, it's a big time saver for me, and it reduces complexity in a way that I think is super helpful.
So is it safe to say that you're not a YAML fan? I don't know if everyone just got that impression. We just need to tell them one more time, you know?
I hate it so much.
Excellent. What about yourself, Patel? What's been kind of your saving grace this year?
All right, that's pretty hard, but I think that like Kate said, the cloud environment was amazing. It's really, really helpful to teach with it and show the environment for customers. I think that's also, like always, it's not something new, but snapshots and VM as always, and some backups like we need to do with infrastructure as code was a really lifesaver because we can just go back some different version very easily. So I think backup is always, and it will remain probably next year and the year after because we really, really need to take some backup sometimes.
Excellent. From the Irish pub, Stephen, what's your thoughts?
Yes, actually, I'm going to answer the question a little bit differently because I've been doing a lot of conferences and events, and we put on our own events as well. And I think this past year has given us all an appreciation, just in working with different coworkers and how you approach your work, of collaboration tools like what we're using now, Zoom, Slack. And there's a lot of great companies which are standing up online collaboration platforms which get us a lot closer to what we're used to doing in person. Like one of the platforms we're using now is Tallulah for a lot of our events, which is done by some great folks who came over from Russia. Hopin is another platform that a lot of conferences run on, and they all give you kind of this sort of experience where you can engage, you can work with people more closely. And I think what we're going to find going forward is that a lot of the barriers which companies or people had before to working virtually or to interacting on projects are going to go away, because we've all been forced to live in a virtual world for a year. So I think, you know, there's other downsides, but I think that'll be a plus for us, where there'll be more opportunities and it'll be somewhat more of a level playing field, because you can work from anywhere. You can be part of different teams, you can interact, and you can do it in a way which makes sense for your lifestyle.
Excellent. Melissa, do you have anything to add?
You guys have hit all the big ones. I mean, the cloud environments, yes. Collaboration tools, absolutely. I think the biggest change for me this year is I was, you know, physical versus the virtual conferences. Having the frameworks that support the virtual conferences has been really an interesting experience, both good and bad. But I think we've learned to adapt to it pretty well. There's definitely improvements to be made, but it's never going to be exactly the same. So, you know, putting efforts toward, instead of trying to make it exactly the same, but adapting and doing different things. And I think one of my favorite things to do was in one of these frameworks for a virtual conference, it was actually the opportunity to show a video of your talk, but at the same time, it's not just a video. You are able to engage in the chat with the other attendees and everything at the same time. So even though the video itself isn't live, you can, you know, basically, I felt like I was in a movie theater, and I actually had this ability to lean over to, you know, someone sitting next to me and say, hey, she just said that. What do you think about that? What's your opinion? You know, and I was able to do that in the chat, and that's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. The other thing is, I think our audiences were completely different. Think about how many obstacles there are, even in, you know, back before COVID, everyone was able to, well, not everyone, that's the point I'm trying to make. Not everyone is able to travel to these conferences and sit there and take that time off work or whatever they need to do to get to these conferences. I think the virtual conferences really opened up the opportunity for folks that you may never have had the opportunity to talk to before, you know? So
that's something I really hope stays, by the way, like
yes.
Desperately, because it's not just the cost of like physically getting to a conference. It's that a lot of these tech conferences, it feels like they're basically just an excuse for a package vacation on company dime, because sometimes the conference pass is so expensive that there is just no universe in which an individual could pay that without their company sponsoring it for them. And that just like, it raises the barrier to entry like so much higher than it should be. And something I really, really, really dislike about tech conferences is that it makes it completely unapproachable. So yeah, I really hope that things stay at least semi.
I agree. And what I hate is, you know, at some conferences, it's like I'll be chatting with folks and I'll be like, oh, well, you know, why you're here, you know, like, where's the rest of your team? And they'll be like, oh, well, we could only afford to send one person, and we chose to send the architect, or, you know, we chose to send the manager. And you really, like, it's great in a virtual environment where that barrier has been removed. Most conferences are free. They're pretty inclusive, and you can get a lot of education, which otherwise you just wouldn't have easy access to.
I was going to save this part to the end, but I feel like it's super relevant for now. So that's like our plan. So Women in DevOps plan for next year is, even if, and touch wood, things go back to normal, we are still always going to include the virtual events. The feedback we've had from like our opinion is that actually they've been more inclusive than ever, more accessible than ever, and far more engaging. And the network session that we're do at the end of the day, actually, and we have been doing all of them, you'll literally put in a room with 4 other people. And I've been to tech conferences, like Web Summit's one of my favorite conferences, but I can tell you now, it's not for the talks, it's not for the content, it's for the pub and you know,
Yeah,
and
the
it's
hallway track and the after party.
exactly right. And
Yeah.
you know,
Exactly. That's the
my
best part.
Yeah.
and my background is recruitment. That is my day job, and it's great for me. I meet a ton of great candidates and clients, but I can see for like an engineer going to that conference, like what is the aim, right? And it, you know, sometimes it can be a 2-3 day event. And for working parents in London, that's where we originated from. Like if there was a delay on the tube that day, or it was raining, our attendance would literally drop. Like our attendance level would be dependent on rain or the tube delays that day. So it's been really a real privilege, and also to connect globally. You know, before it was just like chapters. It was we did Los Angeles or we did London, and I can see on this event that we've got people from London, Manchester in the UK, Los Angeles, New York, Germany. That's a really cool concept, and it doesn't take up loads of your time, and it's much more intimate. So I'm rambling, but I agree with you, and I'm so glad that you folks also kind of feel that sense of community online. And one of the polls we did at the start today was, how have you connected with the community? And the top answer was through webinars. So yeah, it was a scary time at the beginning of the year. I've just invested 4 years of my life into women in DevOps. Like, right, what do we do now? So I'm really glad that it's gone well. But anyway, I digress. We'll talk about remote, and you know, unfortunately we can't be all together. Melissa, you touched on this at the start, and I would love to elaborate more, because thinking about this year, we've had to adapt. Teams have had to scale. So, you know, some teams haven't been able to hire. They've lost headcount for budgeting reasons, you know, the uncertainty. But lots of teams, such as JFrog, I know that, you know, your DevOps acceleration has excelled this year. You continue to hire. What was your experience in a little bit more detail? And what would your advice be for any hiring managers to get that virtual onboarding piece right? Because I know that's so important, those first few days and weeks, to feel welcomed and to feel part of the wider team.
To feel welcome. Boy, that's a difficult one. It is hard to develop relationships and stuff when all you ever do is go to meetings and you just see people's faces. It is really helpful. We have like a weekly Wednesday meeting that we all get together and just chat, just informal, personal stuff, right? Being able to do that in small groups, I think, is really important, even if it's just a Zoom call. It's fine. It needs to happen. We need to see each other's faces. We need to learn each other a little better, you know, like, do you have kids? Do you have pets? What do you do for fun? Things like that. That's all really helpful. On the, yeah, God, I'm supposed to say it's Wine Wednesday is what it is. That's exactly what we call it. At almost every company I've been to, we've always had some type of get together like that. I mean, obviously in the past it was physical, but doing that and having those kinds of events virtually are definitely important to keep plugged in. One thing, like more on a work side, I think it can be overwhelming, the number of ways that you can communicate with your teammates. It's all good, right? You can get to each other through Slack, through email, you know, through text messages, you know, all of that stuff, other kinds of notifications, but it can be overwhelming. I think it's really important for managers to make sure that everyone understands like expectations, like when you get an email, how soon should you respond, how available are you immediately on Slack? Because at least in the physical world, you can kind of tell when someone's busy. You know, I mean, you certainly wouldn't go and tap someone on their shoulder when they're talking to someone, right? When they're engaged. But virtually, it's impossible to know if someone's really busy or chatting with someone or whatever. So I think JFrog was good because we already have offices in several locations. So we kind of have this understanding that if you don't get a response immediately, it doesn't mean you're being ignored, right? It just means they're busy doing something else at the moment. So that's something that I would say is pretty important.
Excellent. I know, Stephen, you have your own team, right? You're a hiring manager. What's your experiences been this year? And is there anything like in particular that you want to implement next year or didn't go as well as you'd hoped, kind of going forward to the hiring and onboarding a remote team?
Yeah. So, I think a couple things specifically for this audience about hiring. So one thing I'd say is don't be afraid, even though currently we're in a pandemic, to look for new opportunities to switch jobs. So tech companies are hiring. Actually, they're hiring more than ever. There are a lot of advantages to starting with a team virtually. So you don't have to sit through onboarding sessions in person. IT is going to send you nice gift packages with all your hardware. Like people have figured out how to take care of you remotely. So it doesn't have to be as scary as you might think it would be to onboard on during a pandemic. And this is also a great time to take advantage of new skill sets which you may have learned. And I think when you look at the job data on careers and salaries, so we all know that being a software developer is reasonably good compared to most other occupations. But if you break it down a little bit more into DevOps engineers and site reliable engineers, in the latest Stack Overflow, the second highest paid career, other than an engineering manager, was an SRE and a DevOps engineer. So I think the fact that you're attending a Women in DevOps event either means you've made a great career choice, and hopefully you can monetize on that by finding a good job, or that you're learning about DevOps and you care about this, and you're kind of bringing your career level up and opening yourself up to new opportunities. And specifically for the pandemic, a couple things which we're all going to be surprised by. And I discovered this when I went into the JFrog office. We opened the office for a couple of weeks when the virus count was low in the Bay Area. So if you've been working with folks who started during the pandemic, or who you didn't know before, or if you started a job and everyone's new to you, you think that you know people, right? Because you see them on video and you chat with them, and you maybe even you network with them. You know about their kids. You might even know more about them because you've seen their house. But there's one thing you don't know about them, and that is you don't know how tall they are. So we all got surprised in the office to find out. So the big comments were, "Oh my God, you're so tall." It's like, well, how tall did you think I was? And the opposite is not quite as flattering, which is when somebody's shorter than you think they are. But again, it's a surprise, and it's interesting, and yeah. So that's a little surprise we all get when we go back to the office, is to meet our coworkers and discover that we might not be as tall comparatively as we think we are.
I am very tall, to be clear, and it's like 30% of my personality, the fact that I'm very tall. So
Yeah.
Quantify that.
I think I'm an average, but maybe I'm short. No, go ahead. That's fine. Sorry.
it's okay.
Excellent. We've just had Jessica say as well, you also don't know if they're wearing pants. Which
Are we talking UK pants or America pants?
I know Jessica, she's based in North Carolina, so American pants.
Okay.
I would be worried if someone wasn't wearing knickers, UK pants.
I mean, I have not gotten like the same kind of dressed I would get if I was going to the office. Like I am not putting on like a pair of trousers or like jeans to work in my living room. I have been wearing yoga pants or sweatpants for the past 8 months. And I'm pretty happy with that decision. It is my apartment. I am not going to get like fully dressed and like put on a button down shirt to walk to my living room. And it's 2020. This has been a rough year, and whatever you got to do to like get through it and make yourself more comfortable in a situation that is extremely uncomfortable for everyone is fine. So I just assume everybody is wearing yoga pants at all times.
I can confirm that I'm currently wearing yoga pants. Well, let's move on, because I'm very conscious of time. It's already 12:45 here on the West Coast, and we've only got a few minutes left before we start going to the questions. I'm kind of jumping back a little bit, but Melissa, you said something earlier that I really wanted to expand on when you mentioned that you joined a DevOps team for the first time and all of a sudden kind of understood the potential frustrations.
Yes.
Why else should developers care about DevOps engineers and SREs and these teams that we're building and the cultures that we're promoting? Why should developers care?
Why should developers care? Well, one of my first experiences on this new team was I was put on call. And it was not fun. It was not fun at all. I'd never had to worry about that before. I just had to worry about, fixing a bug or adding a feature, checking that code in, and I went home, and that was it. That's all that I had to worry about. Well, obviously, when I got put on call, I started, there were problems like the service wasn't scaling correctly. It wasn't scaled at all in this particular service I'm talking about. So that was one issue. It wasn't handling the load that we were expecting. Well, how much load it was going to get wasn't really a discussion that we had between the ops and the developers. So that was something that was completely missing. The other part was getting the environments up and running. So this is an application that we had physical environments that it was running on, but we were also attempting to get it out in the cloud and stuff. Well, this involved, testing environments and staging environments, being able to set those up so that they were the same across the board, so that what I was testing on or developing on is the same that would be in production. I definitely saw some problems where, like I wasn't able to reproduce the problem on my system or on my test system I was working on because the configuration of production was wildly different. And I never knew that, right? I didn't know production, like the size of the database in production was completely different, things like that. So one of my first jobs that I did, which helped a lot with my on-call problem, was just, Kat brought it up right away, the infrastructure as code. We got our team together, both our ops and our devs together, and we went to the whiteboard and we just wrote down the steps it took. Like what steps did we have to take to get this application to production? And it included everything, from checking the code in all the way down to how to set up the server in production in order to get it running, how it was packaged, that kind of stuff. And it came really apparent that there was like one person that knew where some various scripts were. There were just little bash scripts everywhere, so that every time this application needed to be deployed, you had to collect all these little scripts, run them in the right order, make sure you had the right version of the script, because there could be many in many different places. And it was kind of a mess. So that was the first thing we did, was to clean that up. It was incredible. What an incredible difference, because now we could deploy this little application in our test environment, in our staging environment, in our production environment, all the same. We collected all of those little scripts, put them in a separate location, and it was still somewhat manual, but it was a good first step, right? And we were able to roll back easier, roll forward to the next release without worrying about who had the latest version of the script and where it was. So yeah, that's why I cared, because I wanted to sleep at night.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a pretty good reason to care. Sleep's important.
Yeah.
Mattel, do you have anything to add?
I'm sorry, my internet is a bit laggy. Can you please repeat?
Oh yes, just if you had anything to add to why should developers care about DevOps?
Yeah, wow, that's pretty tough question, but we want to make, even as a developer, we want to make sure that our code is running and is stable everywhere, like Melissa said. So we want to make sure that we can run in different environments. So since we have the cloud and the infrastructure as code, and we have a simple YAML and we can just deploy our code in different environments, it's a huge step. And we really can we can right now make sure that everything is running as expected super quickly. And yeah, so I think we need to care about that.
Excellent. And just before we wrap up on that question, Kat, Stephen, is there anything that we haven't covered?
I think that like the first part of Melissa talking about why developers should care about DevOps with respect to like not being able to reproduce issues on our local machine. I think hopefully we will get to a point where we just test in production. Like seriously, I don't think we can roll back and forth so easily now. Feature flags are a thing now. And sometimes it is just literally not possible to replicate production. You just actually cannot do it. I think and I hope we will get to a point where testing in prod is what we do rather than a dumb joke people make on Twitter in the same breath they talk about not deploying on Fridays. Like those are two things that I think should die. And I think testing in prod will happen first before people get comfortable deploying on Fridays.
I must
Yeah,
say.
and just go
Sorry,
ahead, Lauren.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think the ideal is that we're deploying so often that nobody really knows what version of software they're running anymore. They're just we're continuously deploying, they're continuously consuming. And rather than talking about production being down, we're talking about like a single feature which has to be disabled, or a small set of users which received a push where there's an issue and we roll it back, and where it's fluid enough that you just refresh the page and you're getting a version which works because it's already been fixed.
Excellent. So do we feel like platforms or products like Launch Darkly, for example, then could be like the general future? So just doing testing in production. Like, do we think we'll abolish everything else? Like, do we think that's a clear future, or we want to try and get there? Does my question make sense?
I don't know if
it totally makes sense. And I think we're still trying to get there, actually. We're trying to create smaller application with smaller microservices. So I think we're in the right way, but it may take some time.
I agree. I think it's going to take some time still. I think we still have a lot of industries that would be very uncomfortable with testing anything in production, and it still takes a while to deploy those things. We have a lot of old code still out there that doesn't really go well with these new processes, this new way of doing things. I think eventually we will get there, but it's going to take a while for sure. We have a lot more work to do. I think the fear of deploying is a symptom of a problem in and of itself. If you're afraid to deploy your application, there's probably a gazillion other things that need to happen before you're going to get to the point where you can just deploy all the time, right? So it's definitely take little steps. It can be overwhelming at first. The project that I described, wasn't following many of these processes at all, many of the best practices for DevOps. And you've got to start somewhere and just have incremental improvements. Start automating part of it, figure out which part of this whole process takes the most time and focus on that. It's certainly not going to happen overnight. I don't know how many years it will be before a lot of this software that's out there will actually take that approach. But as we learn more about how to deploy, and I like the example where like you deploy only to a small section of your, of your service so that only a small number of people would be affected. I think that's huge. And that's definitely, something to work toward.
Excellent. Well, look, we are almost out of time, and I hope you agree this has been a great conversation, and hopefully everyone listening either live or later on has definitely learned a lot. Before we wrap up, is there anything else anybody would like to add about anything that we've discussed today?
I would like to answer one of these questions in the Q&A box. Are we doing that now, or are we doing that in the networking thing?
No, we'll do that now.
Oh, sweet. Somebody's asking what the name of the Python API to generate declarative code is. It's called Pulumi. And it supports multiple languages. I just write a lot of Python. It's my preferred language, so I use the Python flavor of Pulumi, but it can also do like TypeScript and I think Go. It supports like 4 or 5 different languages right now. It's pretty young tool, but it is rad. So Pulumi, Pulumi.
Thank you. And Kat, whilst we've got you then, anything else? Any takeaways, advice for...
If you are new to DevOps, please don't be discouraged if you find something difficult to learn. It is all difficult to learn, and that's our fault, not yours. It's not because you're stupid or this doesn't click for you or whatever. It is hard to learn, and it's our responsibility to make it not hard to learn. We have messed up, and we have made some of this stuff difficult, and part of that is the language we use, the way we talk to people about what we do, and the way we write technical documentation and instructions about these things. So it's our fault that it's hard. I apologize. We are trying to fix it. Please don't get discouraged by that.
Yeah, and about that, actually, Kate, maybe we can add your amazing jargon that you just created in the GitHub. So maybe we can share it with the folks here. I think they're gonna like it.
Oh, the glossary?
So,
yeah,
Kate,
we can do that.
Yeah.
I'll grab a link and drop it in the chat real quick.
Excellent. Batel, do you have anything else to add? Like anything that you would give, any advice to newer engineers in the industry, those who have found new jobs this year, anything at all? Just your closing statement.
All right, my closing statement. That's for it. But first of all, really, like Kate said, I'm sorry that I'm repeating, but I'm really totally agree with her. Don't afraid to ask. Just feel free to check online, to ask any folks, even add us to LinkedIn and stuff, and feel free just to ask us. We would love to help. And yeah, it could be really tough at the beginning to understand everything, because we are seeing our only perspective and our computer and our environment. But try to think a bit wilder and check other stuff, check new OS system, check new codes, check new everything. Just try to investigate it, and you can really find some great features and great stuff to learn, and amazing software. There are so many software, a lot of open source software that you can just try and use. So just try it.
Excellent. What about yourself, Melissa?
Yeah, I think that's true. The most overwhelming part about DevOps is thinking that you need to know everything, and you certainly do not. Just because we combine the terms doesn't mean that a human being is all of a sudden responsible to be an expert in everything. So, I mean, this is the reason why we form DevOps teams. We have people that have their specialties in certain areas. And this is where the communication and being comfortable to ask each other questions and get guidance is super important. So yeah, ask your questions. Don't go quiet. Don't go silent.
Excellent. And what about yourself, Stephen?
Okay, so speaking of asking questions, I'm gonna quickly answer Rajesh's question because I think we missed him. So first of all, disclaimer: none of us work for Google, so this is not a company opinion about Google Anthos. But if you haven't used it before, I've heard from folks I know who are using it that the recent versions have gotten a lot better, and it's a great framework for doing hybrid multi-cloud, which also is something which we have a lot of focus on our products, is deploying to hybrid and multi-cloud environments. You want to say something, Kat?
I have tried Anthos twice. Once, a little bit more than a year ago at KubeCon NA, because I went to a day 0 for Anthos, and there was like a hands-on lab thing. And at the time, I super did not understand what they were trying to position it as, or like why it was actually helpful. It seemed like abstraction for the sake of abstraction, like it wasn't actually solving a problem. But I tried it again like 2 months ago, and it is much more clearly useful now. I think they had a marketing problem and they were trying to position it as something it wasn't. And that made it super confusing. I wouldn't use it. I would say that, yeah, it's a hybrid multi-cloud situation. That's where it's useful. Individuals know, but it is cool at what it does, which is very specific.
Yeah. Okay. So just wanted to make sure we answered Rajesh's question. And I think, overall, I hope that in this panel and for the folks in the audience, we've been able to kind of give you some help wherever you are in your journey to become a better DevOps expert. And I think that we're all learning continually. Where technology is coming out, new things are constantly cropping up in the cloud native community. Kat had an awesome tweet thread and blog about changes to Kubernetes, which you guys should all check out as well, which are late breaking. And I think it's constantly an evolution, and it's great that we're all able to talk and share our knowledge with each other to help to stay up on the current trends and to make ourselves all better engineers.
Excellent. Well, look, I would just like to take the opportunity to say thank you so much to our entire panel today. Mattel, I know it's really late for you, so I really appreciate it. Melissa, Kat, Stephen, you've all been fantastic. And also like to take the opportunity to say thank you to JFrog as well, who've been unbelievable partners to Women in DevOps this year. And it's been a real pleasure to be associated with these folks. So I know we're running a little bit over, but we are going to host a quick networking session after this, and the link is in the chat. So that's a separate Zoom link. So if you head over to the networking session, I'll see you there. Please do go and follow both JFrog and Women in DevOps on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn for all the latest updates. This is the last Women in DevOps event of 2020, but we'll be back in January with our next event. We have some good suggestions already from some of you today around what that should be. So thank you so much all for attending, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Stay safe.